Hi, everybody. Welcome to English Digest. I'm Tom.
Hi, I'm Trisha.
Trisha, welcome to our program. We've got a new person with us today, and I have an announcement to make.
What?
We're not going to have a program today.
We're canceling?
Yeah, we've decided that all of you out there speak good enough English, and your listening comprehension is fantastic.
Oh,
So
good.
we feel we no longer need to do this program, so goodbye forever. Adios, muchachos.
April Fool's Day.
Yeah, you wish, don't you? You wish your English was fluent and that you wouldn't have to continue studying with us. But unfortunately, you do, because learning a language is quite difficult and it takes many, many years. And, of course, I wish I could be fluent at the wave of a magic wand
Wouldn't
with
that be
Chinese
nice?
as well.
Yeah.
But that's not going to happen. I still need to study that for at least another 10, 20 years. So you're still stuck with us, but happy April anyway. And today we're going to talk about something that will go ringing in your head if you get too close to it. We're talking about bell ringers, people who ring bells.
Yeah, it's a hobby for a lot of people. And I actually know a bell ringer. I knew someone in college that was on a team of bell ringers. And it was beautiful. We had lots of bells near the top of a mountain. And at noon every day, they would play for an hour. It was so lovely. So we're going to talk about this particular hobby. Maybe some of you out there have an interest in it, or maybe you've never even heard of it. We're going to learn some more. But first, we're going to read through today's article. All around the world, church bells ring out in celebration on Sundays and holidays, filling the air with pleasant sounds. What's amazing is that these enormous bells aren't automated, but rung by teams of enthusiastic bell ringers. People have been ringing church bells for hundreds of years. But since the 17th century, the activity has required a team. Change ringing is when a set of tuned bells are rung in succession. Precise variations in the sequence create music. To do this properly, bell ringers must memorize numerous methods, the patterns for changing the order in which each bell is rung. Each method is as complicated as a mathematical equation. Because of this, new bell ringers will usually start out by following an experienced conductor who calls out the changes. Bell ringing is reasonably demanding, but not so physical that elderly people cannot participate. Indeed, older bell ringers say their hobby helps keep them fit. Teamwork and a good sense of rhythm are just as important in bell ringing as strength. Like many activities, bell ringing was affected by COVID-19. Groups were unable to meet up for regular practices. Thankfully, a clever piece of software called Ringing Room was developed in the U.S. It lets teams stay in touch, learn new methods, and practice together. With Ringing Room, the wonderful tradition of bell ringing can continue.
Okay, everybody, let's get to it. Let's explain the contents of today's lesson. The title is This Hobby May Ring a Bell. Interesting. Sometimes when somebody says something and it sort of reminds us of something, that name rings a bell. I seem to know that name, but I don't know exactly who you're talking about. But in this particular case, we are literally ringing a bell. Some people actually do this. I don't know if they do it for a living or if they do it voluntarily, but churches in Western countries and I suppose other countries around the world have bells that people will ring.
Right, and we're calling it a hobby. There are lots of different kinds of hobbies. Some people like to read books, play video games, draw. What do I like to do? I like to cook, try different recipes at home. Or, just write music. There are lots of different kinds of hobbies. A hobby you're not paid for, you do it in your free time, and usually is a way to relax and to use some downtime to, just get rid of all the stress and tension in your life. So this is a possible hobby for our listeners out there. Maybe they'll listen about or learn about ringing bells and think, oh, I want to try that. I'm sure there are some bells here in Taiwan that you can go and volunteer to ring.
There could be. I'm thinking that some temples have these big gongs. I don't know if I would call those bells, but they're quite large. And in some temples, the monks there will ring the bell. That might be similar. But in this particular case, we're talking about church bells. So all around the world, church bells ring out in celebration on Sundays and holidays, filling the air with pleasant sounds. Now, I wasn't much of a churchgoer when I was younger, but I do remember on Sunday mornings, you could hear the church bells ringing out all around town on Sundays because they were calling people to come in to attend church. And yes, the bells can ring out on Sundays for Sunday services, but also in celebration of holidays. So you might hear them on Christmas Day or on Easter Sunday and things like that. So celebration here just means when people get together and commemorate something that happened in the past and they're happy about it.
Yeah, so they're doing something to draw attention to an important event or a holiday or an occasion, and usually they will celebrate, that's a verb form of this noun, by inviting friends and family to come together and maybe eat, enjoy some social activities, or maybe just, catch up and chat together. So there are lots of ways to celebrate, and church bells will often ring out in celebration on particular days. What's amazing is that these enormous bells aren't automated, but rung by teams of enthusiastic bell ringers. Like most things these days, everything seems to be automated. You don't have to do much work anymore. Everything is by the touch of a button or using an app. You start and end things. But here, oh no, they need real people. So they're not automated. So these are enormous bells. We use this word when we're describing something that's really big, huge, gigantic. And some of these bells really are huge. There's no way that you could ever pick one up. They're so big.
Well, I suppose they have a range of sizes for different pitches, but they're still quite large. They are enormous. Imagine the lowest note being a really huge bell, perhaps the size of a large cow or something like that.
Yeah.
But in any case, they aren't automated. I suppose it is possible to automate the bells, but that takes the soul out of it. You want these teams, and you want them to be enthusiastic. So if you're enthusiastic, you have a lot of energy, and you're really happy about doing it. And indeed, these people go to those churches and ring those bells, and they just love it.
Now, people have been ringing church bells for hundreds of years. But back when this first started, there was usually only one bell. These bells were very expensive to produce, and so I'm sure back in the Middle Ages, they couldn't afford to have too many bells. But things changed in the 17th century. At that point in time, the activity suddenly changed and you needed a team of people or a group of people to actually ring the bells. Why is that?
Well, of course, you had a set of bells and they were rung in succession. So that means they were rung in a pattern. Ring, rang, rung. That's the form of the verb to ring. Present tense, past tense, and past participle. So the bells are rung in succession with, I guess a musical score or something like that. Or they know when to hit it at a certain time. I guess it plays like a song, as if you're playing the xylophone or something like that, except in this case, they're large bells. And precise variations in the sequence create music. So a variation is a small change, but they have to be precise. They have to be spot on. If they're off a little bit, you'll get sharps and flats and things like that. And you don't want that. That will make the song sound really bad. So they have to be played in sequence in a particular order.
Yeah, if you play something in sequence, you're playing something in succession. So this type of playing has actually got a name. It's called change ringing. This is the first time I've heard of this. I know that teams of bell ringers get together and produce a beautiful melody. But here I'm learning what it's called for the first time, change ringing. And that's when they actually tune a set of bells so that they can actually perform a melody, something that's recognizable to the listeners. I love that. I'll listen to bells and I think, oh, they're playing this song. How beautiful. So you need to have people that are really trained to do this. Now, they actually use precise variations in the sequence to create music. This is how it's done. Precise means very, very accurate. If you're a scientist and you're performing an experiment, you need to have very precise measurements. Or if you're a baker, bakers must use very precise measurements because there's science to how things react with each other, ingredients react with each other. So if you put in too much salt or sugar or baking soda or baking powder, you might have some failed brownies when you pull them out of the oven. So here we're saying they need precise variations. A variation is just a small change in something that makes it a little different from a whole group of things. Variations.
Now, to do this properly, bell ringers must memorize numerous methods, which are the patterns for changing the order in which each bell is rung. Kind of like reading music, I suppose.
Yeah.
So maybe one bell ringer is responsible for one particular bell, and they're supposed to know when they're supposed to strike it in a particular order. So that song, I guess, is being called a method here. That is the precise order in which the bell is rung. Now, each method is as complicated as a mathematical equation. So that's why you said they require a lot of training to do this, because the methods are quite complicated, as if you're playing, I don't know, maybe some kind of song like a violin concerto or a piano sonata or something. It can be going all over the place with different notes, sharps, flats, phrases, and stuff like that. And because of this, new bell ringers will usually start out by following an experienced conductor who calls out the changes. So a conductor, of course, is somebody who leads an orchestra, and you'll have a conductor who leads the bell ringers.
Right. So if you have a conductor, it's usually someone who stands in front of a band or an orchestra, and they've got those long sticks that we call batons, and they will keep beat or keep the rhythm of the music going. Sometimes they'll point at different sections in the orchestra and say, you know, it's your turn, or play a little louder. So they've actually got experienced conductors who lead this team of bell ringers, which is really interesting. You probably do need a leader, especially if you're not experienced doing it or you haven't played together a lot. Some groups who perform together a lot no longer need a conductor. We are going to take a break right now, listen to our Chinese teacher, and then we'll be back to continue talking about this hobby, ringing bells or bell ringing.
听众朋友大家好，我是安娜。我们今天要带大家来谈谈敲钟。其实在台湾因为我们是佛道教是比较多啦，不过其实在世界各地教堂的钟声大概都会在每个星期天或者是各个节日的庆典上面就会 ring out， 就会响起，而且空气当中呢就会有很悦耳的声音。那么刚才我讲的这一句话其实就出现在文章第一段的第一句的地方。那当然这句话呢要特别注意一下，其实它是一个句子的简化，因为其实在句子当中逗点之前这个子句的动词是 ring out， 那么逗点之后其实有一个动词叫做 fill， 充满填满，它的用法是 fill something with something， 用什么什么来填满，所以其实原本的句子应该是逗点之后and fill 出现了第二个动词，但是连接词 and 省略，所以动词直接变动词 ing， 这是一种句子的简化，我们也称为分词构句，而且是连接词 and 省略的这一种。那当然呢，有这样子的悦耳的声音，我们都觉得非常的开心。可是其实令人惊讶的是，这些巨大的钟并不是自动的哦，其实是有一群很热情的敲钟人所敲响的。我们这篇文章是设计成克漏字，那么第一格我们就要特别小心，特别注意一下，因为第一格真的是令人感到很困扰。A 的 which 叫做冠带， 那么 D 的 that 也可以当成冠带，可是大家注意一下 D 选项的 that 哦，它除了当冠带之外，本身可以当连接词，用来连接后面的主词动词，也就是一个句子。所以我们来看这个第一格啊，其实空格的前面是 be 动词，所以 A 其实可以直接删掉。因为冠带 A 的which 前面一定会有先行词，所以 A 是不能选的。也就是说 B、C 跟 D 的答案在文法上都对，可是文意上头，其实我们很清楚说明的是，令人感到惊讶的是另外一件事，那一件事情已经澄清了事实。这个事实就是这些钟不是自动敲，而是由一群热情的敲钟人所敲响，所以它应该是直接连接一个事实，要选无意义的这个连接词，答案选 D that。 那么当然在这句话当中，我们要把后面的 not but 圈出来， not A but B， 不是 A 而是 B。 好，那么大家其实敲钟已经敲了好几百年啦，从17世纪开始就是由一个团队来敲钟，而且呢要连续的敲响一组调好的钟哦，在这种变化当中创造出音乐。所以为了要能够正确的做到这一点，敲钟人就要记好很多的敲法，才能够变换每一个钟被敲响的一个顺序模式。接下来我们在第二段当中第4句的第2格，正确的答案是 C order， 是顺序这件事情。不过顺序后面带了一个限定用法的关系子句，从 in which 这个 in 可以左括号到句尾的右括号。那么 in which 指的是 in the order， 在这样子的顺序当中，每一个钟正确的被敲响。好，那么当然这些敲法都会跟数学方程式一样复杂哦，所以新手就会跟资深的敲钟的指挥的一起来学习。好，我们看一下同样第2段的第5句的地方，它有出现一个 as complicated as a mathematic equation。 这里的 as 是用比喻来具体的陈述 as 中间这个形容词的情况。那么这情况是很复杂，怎么样的复杂呢？跟数学的方程式一样复杂。所以 as 的句型第2个 as 是像什么一样的，回到前面第一个如何如何。
We're going to take a quick break. Stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Okay, everybody, let's continue with our lesson. Let's look at the next paragraph here. It says, bell ringing is reasonably demanding. It's pretty much demanding, but not so physical that elderly people cannot participate. So, indeed, it is demanding, probably more mentally demanding than physically demanding. But, indeed, if something's demanding, it requires a lot of work out of you. You could be exhausted after doing it. Sometimes your job may be demanding because you need to see lots of clients every day, and you need to do lots of calculations on your computer, and you've got deadlines and things like that. So, of course, your job can be very demanding, and bell ringing can be demanding, but it's not so physical because, hey, elderly people can also participate.
People can also be demanding. Maybe you've worked with a demanding boss. I had a demanding boss in New York, and I liked him, but wow, he wanted things done very quickly, very accurately, and I didn't have much time to even work on the projects that I was given. So sometimes we can meet up with demanding people, a boss, a family member, even a friend can be demanding and need a lot of attention. But at least the elderly people can still participate. They don't actually have to pick up heavy things and move around too much, but you must focus. If you don't focus, you're going to lose track of where people are. You also have to be able to keep the beat and stay up with the rhythm. So I can see why they say it's demanding.
And indeed, for sure, older bell ringers say their hobby helps keep them fit. So indeed, it probably gives them something to do to continue to be useful to society, to participate in society. So they participate in this bell ringing activity, and knocking on those bells with the hammers and stuff like that can certainly keep them fit. Teamwork and a good sense of rhythm are just as important in bell ringing as strength. So you need to be strong and you need to have a good sense of rhythm when the beats happen, and sometimes people don't have a good sense of rhythm. They start speeding up or they slow down, and that's no good for the band.
If you're a dancer, you obviously need a good sense of rhythm. You can't exactly count out loud while you're dancing. That rhythm needs to kind of flow in your body. I know some of these bells, they do use sticks or something to hit the side. But the older bells, like Notre Dame, the cathedral there in Paris, they actually have ropes attached to their bells. So you need to have some strength to pull on those ropes. You've probably seen pictures of that before. So teamwork, got to work together well with people and have a good sense of rhythm. Those are very important skills that you'll need as a bell ringer. You may not need to pull on ropes to get those bells ringing, but you'll definitely need to be able to focus. So like many activities, bell ringing was affected by COVID-19. People were asked to stay inside, not go outdoors. You couldn't, even be with friends and family. So yeah, a lot of things were affected by COVID-19.
And groups are unable to meet up for regular practices. They could not get together to practice like they normally do. Thankfully, a clever piece of software called Ringing Room was developed in the United States. So, of course, for these online meetings, we've had various software programs. So this piece of software was called Ringing Room, specifically designed for people who participate in this bell ringing activity. So they, log on or whatever. They go online. They meet up with people.
I think it's an app, if I'm just going to guess.
On the phone? Yeah. Okay. I suppose you could also use it on your PC, but your phone would work just as well. And this particular piece of software, this app, was developed in the United States. I guess this activity is alive and well in the USA, especially probably in the bigger cities that have big churches where they can have lots of bells and lots of volunteers come in to ring those bells. But I suppose during the lockdowns, there weren't church services, so they probably had these performances online.
We use this verb phrase meet up quite often when we get together with friends and family. Hey, let's meet up at the theater at 7, or let's meet up at this restaurant around the corner and have dinner or breakfast or whatever. So to meet up with people. You can just meet people too, but meet up with gives you this idea that you've arranged a special time to meet with someone to do some sort of activity, probably a social activity to meet up. And it says here that this software that Tom was talking about is clever, which just means it's really kind of smart. There are a lot of different apps that were invented during the lockdown. A lot of people had a lot of extra time on their hands at home, so they were very productive and came up with new apps. Even my nephew came up with an app while COVID was ongoing, and it's now very successful. So see what you can come up with yourself. We have a lot of clever people here in Taiwan, that's for sure. So moving on to the next part, it just says that this particular software, again, it's called Ringing Room. You might want to check it out. It lets teams stay in touch, learn new methods, and practice together. I was saying to Tom earlier, one of the hardest things during COVID for me was meeting together with my group of kids in church and teaching them new songs because the internet speed was always different in different homes. And so when we try to sing together, it was a disaster. So maybe this Ringing Room kind of helps with that internet speed problem we all experience.
That would be nice. And this particular piece of software lets teams stay in touch, learn new methods, and practice together. So here we've got the word let as a verb. That just means to allow someone to do something. So indeed, if you're young and you want to go out with your friends or something like that, you could say, well, I can't go meet you guys tonight for the movie because my parents won't let me out of the house. They say my grades have been bad and I'm grounded. I have to stay home and study, so they won't let me go. And in this particular case, though, this piece of software, this program will allow teams or let the teams stay in touch. to maintain contact, to continue to communicate with each other. They can also learn new methods, new ways of banging those bells. Again, I'm not sure if they bang on the bells with a hammer or if they pull a rope, like you said. I should mention that when bells usually ring, they kind of move back and forth. They kind of move like a pendulum. And then there's a thing inside the bell called the clapper that will hit the sides of the bell and make those sounds. But again, I've never done this myself, so I'm not quite sure exactly how it's done. But in any case, if you go on these chat rooms with this program, Ringing Room, you'll learn those new methods, and you could also practice together. I did want to also mention that the word practice in this sentence is being used as a verb, but it can be used as a noun when you're talking about getting together to practice. I have band practice today after school. We have to get together and practice our songs.
Yeah, I have soccer practice, or we're practicing new kicks in soccer practice this afternoon. We use them interchangeably. I have a nephew who is a percussionist. He's just graduating from high school, and he loves when he's assigned the bells or the xylophone. They have to be very quick to keep up with the melody, but it's similar, trying to come up with different tones. Remember, they set these bells so they're tuned to a certain key and tuned to a certain note or pitch. So if you have interest, I would recommend checking out Ringing Room. You know, at the very least, you're going to meet some people who share your love for bells, and maybe you'll make some new friends that way, and find out where some groups in your particular area are meeting up, and join them and see if you can add this to your list of hobbies that you love to do in your free time.
Indeed. So you might not be able to find groups of people to ring bells here in Taiwan, but I think a good substitute would be a set of xylophones, or a xylophone, or maybe a glockenspiel, or similar instruments where you hit different little things with different pitches, and it's probably a very similar concept. So with Ringing Room, the wonderful tradition of bell ringing can continue. And indeed, if you'd like to hear what this is all about, I'm sure you can find videos online showing people doing just this. Okay, that brings us to the end of our lesson for today. It's time now to listen to our Chinese teacher.
不过因为敲钟是相当费力的，但是其实又不会太耗体力，让年长者没有办法参与。好，我们来看一下哦，在第3段的第1句的地方，其实整个句子感觉上好像有点复杂，其实不会啦。在逗点之后，我们先把 but not 这个 not 抓出来，然后我们把句尾后面 cannot 的 not 抓出来。我们都知道一个道理叫做负负得正，所以把 not 删掉之后，句子其实就变成，其实敲钟是相当费力的，但是这个年长的老人其实还是可以参与，因为他不会太耗体力。好，所以在这样子的句子理解之后呢，第4格我们会选 be physical， 就是耗体力这件事情。当然在这句话当中，我们看到一个特别的句型，就是 so that， 如此的以至于，所以句子重新顺一遍，我们会发现句子是敲钟是相当 demanding， 当然是费力啦，但是 not so physical， 又不会太过于费力，以至于老人没办法参与。事实上，年长的敲钟人一定要参加这样子的活动，因为这是他们的嗜好，而且保持健康。所以基本上，年长者跟年轻者要一起合作，这种团队合作跟良好的节奏感，就会跟体力一样重要哦。所以第3段最后面的第3句，我们同样又看到了 as 的句型。不过呢，跟很多的活动一样，现在敲钟也受到新冠肺炎的影响，所以没有办法定期的练习。不过第5格 thankfully 还好，现在美国发明了一套叫做 Ringing Room 这样子的智慧软体，所以可以让大家在线上保持联系，学习新的敲法跟练习。希望大家今天有学到新的知识哦。我是安娜，我们下次见。
Okay, that brings us to the end of our lesson for today. Thank you for joining us. And we do hope that you can find a group of bell ringers out there somewhere, whether you want to participate or just listen to them. I'm sure it will be an amazing experience. From all of us here at English Digest, I'm Tom.
I'm Stephanie.
Goodbye.
Bye.